Hello and welcome to Adam's Music Box, where today is sort of a time for reflection because it was on this day in 1968 that a person who I think was a great man was shot dead under circumstances which remain incredibly dubious. And this was, of course, the assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who was gunned down by, let's say, persons unknown. Some have a different take on that at the kitchen of the Coconut Grove at the Ambassador Hotel, which was conveniently torn down. Although luckily I was inside it several times, an interesting place to be sure. Now, the 60s, when we talk about it in a historical context, tends to be filled with a lot of puffed up cliches that I don't really find very helpful because it was a real time where real people were doing real things just like they are today. And there were a lot of things that were changing, both within the control of people, a lot of great new technologies, and a lot of that was emblematic of the moonshot that Robert Kennedy's brother spoke about at the beginning of the decade. I know some people think that no one ever walked on the moon. I don't know, but the idea that we would do all of this interesting stuff with technology that eventually did come back down to Earth, that certainly is true enough and very interesting. It was a decade of the civil rights movement, which was controversial at the time, Vietnam, which was controversial at the time, the end of Bretton Woods, which happened in 71, but the seeds were sown with the beginnings of the London gold pool and the profligate spending of the Johnson administration, and we all know the rest of the story. But one of the most tragic of the many tragic things in that decade that was sort of a teeter-totter between optimism and pessimism were so many assassinations of prominent figures, and I think we know who may have had the hand in these assassinations. But write in the comments if you think you know better. But I think we all kind of know. Um, to a degree. But of course, there was first the assassination of President Kennedy, then the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and of course, the assassination then of Senator Kennedy, who was on his way to probably becoming the next president at the time that he was shot. Now, I can already hear people say, "What the hell is he talking? This is a music show. What the hell is it? Kennedy and Martin Luther King? Shut the hell up." Well, I'm getting to the music. Just you wait. I'm getting to the music because just a couple of months after the tragic assassination of Senator Kennedy, Dion came out with a song that captured the mood of people who had these assassinations on their mind. And this was Dion's song, Abraham, Martin, and John. And of course, that is he's relating the centuries prior assassination of President Lincoln to the deaths of Martin Luther King and President Kennedy, and of course adds my good friend Bobby Kennedy to that song. I mean, I don't actually know when he began writing the song. Maybe it was even written before this assassination. I could just see him there thinking, oh God, another one. But it's one thing when you sort of reflect on stuff that happened ages ago in a song. It's another thing to really capture the mood of a time at that time. And I think that that's what Dion absolutely did with this song. It's definitely one of the most important songs of the 60s. And again, music in the 60s was very reflective of what was going on at the time politically. There are some eras in music where being politically aware goes out of fashion. Frank Zappa complained that this was the case in the 80s. But in the 60s, whether they had the right views or the wrong views, and there were plenty of both coming out of the records at the time. And yes, there were some people with views who were suppressed, even in an era where, musically speaking, things were a bit more free than they became, let's say, at the turn of the 21st century. But this song in particular, I just think captures that moment really well. And it was written, or it was released rather, just a couple of months later. So it's all over your Spotify's and your Whatify's, Dion's Abraham, Martin, and John. It captures the mood of the time, I think, perfectly. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.